All right, guys. So it is December 30th, and New Year's is very fast upon us. I hope everybody is going to have a very safe and happy New Year's tomorrow. Hope you all have your coffee. I apologize. I worked on this lag for hours, and I'm not really sure why it's doing it. So I apologize for it now. I'm going to keep working on it. It might just be that the internet here isn't that quick. So again, I apologize for that, and I apologize. We're in my living room this time. You can see my Christmas tree behind me here. Because I plugged my laptop in because I was researching it so much the battery died on me. So I apologize for that as well. So I see there's a few of you guys here in the room, and we have a couple questions on the main page that we're going to pop back and forth to, just like we did. After this, I'm gonna try and hold these every Monday night, but we're gonna actually have topics from coming up. Basically, I think next Monday, I think we should talk about mutants. That seems to be a really hot topic, and then a lot of people can, chime in and ask about the different morphs and how they work and things like that. So let's get to the page here. Sorry, I'm popping back and forth, and okay. Okay, Aaron Henderson asks, what species do you have or otherwise require a hibernation period, and how is that best to do? Well, that is a very large chime in and ask about the different morphs and because how they work. Ooh, I got multiple things going. Sorry. That is tough to answer because different species require different hibernation methods. I'll give you a couple examples of things that we do here. So the yellow-bellied toads, which if you're following our Facebook page, you see they laid eggs this week. They require a cooling period in the water. So when you do a water change, when you're ready to get them to lay eggs, you put in some very cold dechlorinated water, always dechlorinated water. And as that kind of warms up to room temperature, it then goes and cues them to lay some eggs and hopefully fertilize them. Doesn't work every single time, but that's one trick that you could do for all fire-bellied toad species that you could go ahead and get them to get in the mood as you will. It kind of is a fake winter into spring with the water temperature changes, and that works, like I said, very well. We did with yellow bellies. I've done it with fire bellies before, so that's one cue of tricking them into hibernation. We don't hibernate any of our Pacmans. We don't have to. As gone over in other videos here, we use methods of hormonal breeding, so we don't have to do that. We basically have to make sure our nutritional levels and our animals are in tip-top shape for that, which we could go over that in a whole other level. I think nutrition is a great one as well. You guys could chime in. I don't know if this chat is actually working tonight because it's saying it's unable to connect to chat. So if you can chat, go ahead and feel free to ask any questions. I'm still learning this whole thing, guys, so I really apologize. This isn't that fancy and flashy as a lot of YouTube channels are. Okay, so the hibernation, what else do we have to do? You could do basically tree frogs. It's not so much a hibernation as it is a dry period and a wet period. You'll go ahead and put them in a dry, basically, atmosphere. You still got to give them water, of course, a water bowl. But you're really going to cut down on your mistings and your photo periods for a while, and then go ahead, bring them back up, and then go ahead and do artificial rain, whether it's a rain chamber, whether you have a mist king and you're doing something like that, and increasing the misting on your tanks. Here in Pennsylvania, we don't have to do so much of the hibernation because we do have four seasons, and while we do have a temperature controlled room, these frogs know. For instance, tonight, I wait till tonight. We're spawning right now. Hopefully, it's a good spawn this evening, but we're having a really good rainstorm, and I try and kind of concur that with the weather that's going on outside. It really does help a lot with any type of frog breeding. They can really sense the barometric pressure changes. And even though you were still putting them in a rain chamber, making it rain inside, it really does help with breeding all of your frogs, whether it's red eyes or white tree frogs, whatever it is. And I can answer specific questions on different species we work with as well. If you have any on hibernation or breeding techniques or anything like that, I'd be more than happy to help you guys. So let me pop back over here to Facebook and let's see if we have any other questions here other than hibernation. And at this time isn't really good for you guys. I mean, I figured Monday night, it's the start of the week, not too much going on. It's really not that busy. I mean, let me know. I'd like to do these more often. And certainly, if we have anybody in the crowd who is a technical guru or loves to make videos and graphics and all that stuff, please PM me. And I'm always wanting to learn how to do these videos better and how to do the other videos better and things like that. Because here at the Frog Depot, I like to be pretty open book. I like to let you guys know what's going on. I feel we're probably one of the most open and honest breeders you're going to see out there, and I like to keep it that way. Hence, why we're having these question and answer sessions. All right, got another question here. Chat's working. Thank you, Tristan. I don't know why it's not on my side, but let's see. Tristan, if you listen, type something in here so I can see if it's working on my side, because right now I don't know what's going on with it. I don't know if I can close it, and I don't think I could close that without closing the whole session, so that we're not going to do. I have to start all over. All right. Anybody else have any questions that they would like to? You can just, since this chat's not working, you could PM me on Facebook, or you could go ahead and type a question on Facebook as well. Other things, since we're going over hibernation and breeding techniques, I like to use a lot of, people tend to forget this little stuff, and it's when you're doing tree frogs is your plants, and it gets a lot more specific with certain kinds of species and what kind of, whether you're going to use live plants or fake plants. I'm a big advocate of fake plants because I could take them out. I could disinfect them every single time. They could take a beating in the rain chamber, but and I could really kind of mix it up, mix and match with what size leaf, what species of leaf. It does matter to some of these guys as to which leaf they're going to actually go ahead and deposit their eggs on. Right. All right. So Tristan, I'm sorry, wants to get one species of each kind of Pacman and was wondering about Aritas and the different species we have in stock. Everybody had their coffee? I love Aritas. Brazilian horn frogs, which is also known as Aritas, come in so many different patterns and colors. You basically have your green, your orange, your tan, and they're really psychedelic. They are monster eaters. They are one of the bigger species of Pac-Mans that you can get out there. And just now in recent times, you've actually been able to get them at a price range that's much better for you guys to get into your collections to really enjoy these. I remember not too long ago, an Arita was $200-300 for a baby, and now we have them for $35. And let me tell you, they're one of the most fun animals I have down there to work with. I sincerely love them. Like I said, they get pretty big. They are ravenous eaters. Other species are ornates, same deal. There's not as much as far as colors and patterns with the ornates, but you basically can get your high red ornates, which to me, I mean, very few species in Comoros beat a high red ornate. They're dragon wing ornates, which are pretty hard to come across, and even worse, I hear you guys chiming in your messages on that phone. Even more rare is like a high red dragon wing. We do have some of those growing up, but it's going to take a little bit of time till we got them breeding for you. But again, thank you, Chris. I see your messages here. I'm on the Facebook page. So what age are you able to sex a Pac-Man? That is a loaded question. I look at thousands of Pac-Mans every month. So I tend to, I could sex these things sometimes by looking at the shape of the hips when they're really small. But again, I don't expect you guys to be able to do that because you're not looking at so many of them. But as far as age, That varies on what you're feeding the husbandry at home. But I would say a good rule of thumb: males tend to show those nuptial pads pretty young at I would say 6 to 7 months. You can end up seeing some nuptial pads. Sometimes they're a little bit late bloomers, but the real kicker is, and I'm going to try and show you here. So these would be the hands of the frog. Concentrate on your thumbs. So if I was a female, those thumbs would be straight out towards the middle. They're straight out. They're really like L-shaped. But if I was a male, they'd be more curved. And the reason that is, guys, is because that's what they're using to hold the female when they're breeding. So the nuptial pads would be right in here. And like I said, you could tell that really young. Even if you don't see the pad, if those thumbs are curled in, then you got a male. Females are very easy to tell at a young age because those thumbs are just straight out. Because they don't need to hold on to anything when they're breeding. It's all in the grip when you're talking about Pacman sexing and breeding. Great question, Chris. Uh, Katie. Katie has a question here as well. How do you get Suriname marine toads to eat? It's another good question. We get that a lot. Number one, I will say make sure you have a Suriname marine toad. I know Katie does because she bought one from us. But the reason I say that is because that there's a lot of fakes out there. They're Florida Marines or basically they're not imports. They're not true Guyana or Suriname giant marine toads. Now they're all marine toads, but these guys are kind of the real deals. What she's talking about, the Surinams. To be honest with you, I don't have much problems with those guys eating. The key is to keep them hydrated. They really do enjoy soaking in a lot of water. They're not going to sit there in the water dish for a while, and the temperatures. And because these guys like it a little bit more hot and humid because it's just where they're from. And lastly, I find a lot of people tend to put this huge frog, and I'm talking sometimes the frogs are 10 plus inches in a small tank. I mean, guys, this is one of the largest. Pardon me. Let me turn this off. These are one of the largest frogs that you can buy, and you can't put them in a tiny tank. It just doesn't work really well. So I would say make sure the husbandry is absolutely spot on, and you will be fine. Pardon me, guys, just trying to check everything around. All right, see if we got any more questions on here. My chat is still not wanting to work. I have no idea why that doesn't want to work. Anyways, we could do it the old school way and just keep going through the Facebook. Thanks, guys, for kind of working with me here and sending the questions through there. Technology is not my friend sometimes. All right. Okay. So that seems to be all the questions I have on here. And unfortunately, I see that you guys are in the room watching, but unfortunately, I can't get any chats going. And that I greatly apologize for. I'm going to work on that for next time. So let me know for next time if there's comment below. If there's anything in particular you want to talk about, like I said, next Monday night, let's rock some mutants because I know that's a really, really big topic for you guys. They're really, really, really close to my heart. We have a lot of them. I mean, a lot of mutants because I just have a real problem letting them go because I think every single one is cool as heck. Oh, there we go. Chris has a question just popped in here. If my computer wants to refresh, which it doesn't. There we go. Besides cocoa fiber, would ABG substrate be fine? I ordered all the items today and just double checking. I'm going to say no. I'm going to tell you why I'm going to say no. Because there's sphagnum moss in it. And I have seen a lot of people lose their frogs to sphagnum moss. If there is long fiber sphagnum moss in the ABG mix, unless you have an adult Pac-Man, and even then, I don't know. It's a little touchy because keep in mind these guys will eat anything that's in front of them. They're going to swallow that moss, and I guarantee you they can't pass it. And then it's going to be a surgery, very expensive surgery, if you could find a vet that could even do that kind of surgery in your area. So unless you take the frog out of the tank to feed it, in that case, then yes, I would use ABG because he does state here it's for a bioactive tank. I love the fact that bioactive tanks. We are actually going to start selling springtails and isopods here very soon that you can purchase with your Pac-Mans or anytime you want on the site in the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye out for that. So I love the idea of bioactive. It keeps things more clean. They're kind of your cleaner crew in between all your mass cleanings and your spot cleanings. So I think it's a great idea to do that. Like I said, the ABG, you got to be a little careful with just to make sure. Milled moss, it depends on the size. Sorry, Chris is chatting as I'm answering his question. So it really depends on how long the moss is. Milled moss, long fiber moss, sphagnum moss, New Zealand moss, they're all the same, almost the same mosses. So you kind of have to get it in and look. If it's longer fiber, like I said, I probably would be a little hesitant to feed the frog in a cage, especially if it's a baby. That's when you're going to run into a lot of issues. Um, so again, I like the idea of bioactive, but just be really careful with what you're feeding and how you're feeding them at that point. Great question. I think a lot more people should do the bioactive. It really does help. I mean, we don't do it here with our breeders because we do a total different setup just because the sheer volume of breeders that we keep here. So we don't do it that way. But I think it's an excellent way to do it. Let's see if we got any more questions here. How many different species of Pac-Man are there, and have you gotten all of them at one point? From Tristan. Tristan, boy, I cannot talk tonight. No, I haven't got them all. I'm gonna mess this pronunciations up big time. So there's obviously ornates. There's Cranwells, which is the most popular. There's Cornudas, which are your Argentine horned frogs. There's Aridas, which are your Brazilian horned frogs. There is your Josies, which Josiensis. I'm going to mess that up, but Josies is another one which we don't really have here in the States at this time. They're very rare, actually, in the entire captive community. And then there's the really, really, really tiny ones, the Puritani or something. Like I said, I'm going to mess this scientific pronunciation up big time. And I think the ornates, I don't know if I mentioned the ornates, I might have already in there. So I currently do the Brazilians. I do have Cornuda. I do have Cranwells, obviously a lot of Cranwells. We do have Aridas. That's what we work with this time. Unfortunately, the other ones are either ridiculously expensive to get here in the States, to get them actually imported, not even to get them. Like I'm sure there's a few hiding out there, but they're really, really rare to get. And I will note that fantasies are not their own species. A lot of people think they are. They are a hybrid from your Cranwells and your Cornudas. Beautiful hybrid. Probably the most successful hybrid in all of reptile history as far as popularity and keeping their biggest pixie frog I own. Big. I don't know. I don't really weigh them. I mean, you know, monsters. So I don't weigh all the pixie frogs, or I do everything by sight. I guess I'm a little old school. That's how I did it with the leopard geckos, and for 17 years. And basically, I look at these animals, and if you really pay attention and you're really watching them, and you're watching their habits, their behavior, and how they're working in the spawn, you can then really get to know when they're ready to breed, when they're not ready to breed, how they're doing health wise. And that's what's nice about me getting to be down there every single day and seeing these animals every single day. I know who's, top of the game, who's not the top of the game, who's ready to go into spawn, and who is not ready to go into spawn. I mean, there are actually guidelines, but I tend to take those guidelines and go further. Take a little bit more time with the females. We don't breed them nowhere near as much as we actually could. Ever going to breed newts or salamanders? I have bred firebelly newts, and we did some axolotls for a short period of time. I think they're awesome. I think they're very interesting. They're not for me. I'm a fat frog guy. I like bigger things. And I do enjoy the tree frogs because the tree frogs are very much so a challenge. It's not so much put A and B together and there you go. And Pac-Man's, I'm not saying Pac-Mans are easy. Pac-Man's really intrigued me for the genetics and the cool stuff that's coming out. I think it's so much untapped potential in Pac-Man as far as that goes. Do you like Sicilians, or are they boring? I've kept them once, and I think they're just such an interesting animal, and they're so hard to get at times. I think they're just like that old school herp to have in the collection that has such an interesting story. I don't have any currently. I just have so much other things going on. But I don't think they're boring. I think they're like I said, they're one of those animals that I think tomato frogs are boring. I love tomato frogs to death. They're bright red. They look good, but they just kind of sit there. I think a Sicilian is actually a little bit less boring. To be honest with you, I love them. Great question. Right. White line monkey tree frog setup and lifespan. My thoughts. This is coming in from BJ Meredith. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy your emerald frog that's going out soon. Um, So, white lines, there's two different kinds of white lines you could get. You could get adults that are wild caught through various vendors. Like myself, we carry them from time to time. Or sometimes you can get the really tiny babies, which people want to mislead you in thinking that they're farmed or captive raised. Basically, these animals are these tadpoles are taken out and shipped here with four legs, and then they'll absorb the tail and it's not quite as captive bred as we like to think they are, and they're very, very challenging. Personally, when I do the small bicolor or the white line babies, I like to keep every single one separately in a fruit fly container with a pothos leaf and wet paper towel at the bottom, which is changed and cleaned every day. That's how I had personally my best success with them. The little ones speaking. Now the big guys, keep in mind all these waxies, they don't you don't keep them like a tree frog. That's how people kill them. They have this wax for a reason because they are actually more of a basking group species in general. So every night they go in, they're going to shed this wax up top of their head. It's really, really cool process they do, but that's their protectant. So basically, they like it where it's pretty warm. So how we keep them is in exoterras, and I like to use dowels that go across in all different directions so that they can perch in any type of angle they like. I will have a low wattage basking bulb on the top. Again, that's going to depend on where you're at, how warm you keep your room. So I really can't kind of give you a let's do this wattage on this bulb type of thing. And then, of course, a water dish at the bottom. And the paper towel I keep very lightly damp, not much dampness at all if I do it. And like I said, most times just a dry paper towel. These are not wet loving frogs, guys. And that's why, like I said, most people they get these bicolor in, and they are an amazing frog. But that's how they kill them because they keep them like a red-eyed tree frog or a white tree frog, and they don't realize that that's not what they are. They're totally different. Um, Lifespan, that's tough too because if you're getting an adult frog, you have no idea how old these frogs are. We don't know how old they are. They could be a day away from expiring as far as age goes, or they could be just hitting maturity and having a much longer life. So while the smaller ones are way more challenging, as far as keeping, they're all challenging, but the small ones are much more challenging. Um, I think I would probably go with an adult as a better chance of having a good, you know, good time with keeping them, best survival rate. But again, as I tell everybody who goes to purchase these frogs, these are not for beginners. They're not for beginners at all. I've had very experienced uh, herp people and frog people get these, and they end up losing them. So it's definitely not a species that is for everybody. You really got to do a lot of research. All right. Have you ever kept or seen someone who has Goliath frogs successfully? No. I've only had them offered to me once. About a year ago, they were uber expensive, and that's why we didn't do it. It was an import in, just didn't have the facilities for that type of frog, and nor do I think there's a whole lot of you out there that are going to pay $600 for a frog. Um, while it's a really, really cool species, I just didn't see it going over well for us, and nobody else brought them in either. So obviously, it wasn't. A good idea there. And Goliath frogs, they are the biggest frog, and they're ridiculously rare, very hard to get, but probably the most impressive frog in the world. And I wish I had the facilities big enough at that time, um, that I could have got them in, at least done them myself, but we just didn't. And like I said, it was a lot of money, a lot of money. All right. Chris asks, any experience with Arcadia deep heat projectors? No, not those in particular, but the zoo to which I did work for, we used a lot of Arcadia lights. I can tell you they're one of the best, if not the best, lights you could purchase on the market. There's a lot of studies that have been done which actually show the UVA, UVB concentrations in them, and they are top notch about doing what they actually say that they're doing. So I really, really, really like Arcadia. I currently don't use any Arcadia here, but again, if I did use it at the zoos for exhibit purposes and things like that, highly recommend it. They're a really, really, really good brand. All right, I don't see any other questions popping through. And I really, really appreciate everybody coming over here and taking the time out of their Monday night and spending it here so that we can chat a little bit about frogs, because that's really what I'm all about. I like making the frogs, but I also like talking with you guys and helping you out, because if you guys are having fun with it, then I'm doing my job right. And that's just exactly how I look at it. So let's meet up again next Monday night. So next Monday night at 8 o'clock, it'll be the same thing. Maybe I could learn to do a little bit better stuff on here. We'll see how that goes. And like I said, next Monday, we're going to talk about mutants. Think about questions for mutants. And Pacman's in that general, but I'll answer anything. We don't have to just talk about mutants. So you can bring any question to the table that you like. Again, guys, I always ask sincerely, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It lets me know that you are enjoying what we're doing, and I'll keep on going. So again, like I said in the beginning, please have yourself a fun, a happy, and a really safe New Year's. I'll see you guys next year.